provided to you and/or potentially budgeted in this upcoming fiscal year. So with that, we can go back through each one, and we'll ultimately take a vote at the end.
What I'd like to do, if I may, is just ask, rather than go through each and every one, if any commissioners have any request or strong desire to take something off of a diamond, and then I would like to address, is there anything that we would like to create a diamond for as well?
Yes.
So right now, I want to, I'll start at the other end with, is there any that we want to take the diamond off of right now on any of the 4 goals?
Chair, if I may, before you
Yeah.
do that, because Bill has so eloquently summarized it, because at the state level, there has been a lot of focus on special districts. Not on airports or the Naples Airport Authority, but special districts in general. And Bill, would you mind just briefly sharing a summary of the state's activities?
In general.
Generally speaking, the past, say, 3 or so years.
Yeah, I mean, just what I've noticed is from legislation that's not only been proposed, but also has been enacted, that there seems to be a higher level of scrutiny that the legislature, or at least a majority of legislators, have placed on special districts. It's included various amendments to various statutes that affect special districts. I think 2 years ago, they enacted specific legislation that required a external audit of certain types of special districts, including mosquito control districts, fire districts, and some other ones. And then this, to me, is just along those same lines, another piece of legislation that has come about that is, putting a higher level of scrutiny and transparency on special districts. So I think that's what was the impetus of this. Unfortunately, they may have certain goals and objectives, but the actual language of the statute isn't too descriptive to give a lot of guidance to special districts. So that's kind of why we're bringing this to you today to give us some guidance. The statute specifically, as far as the October 1st, 2024 deadline is concerned, talks about each special district, and that includes us, whether you're a taxing district with taxing authority, which we do not have, or no taxing authority, independent or dependent. It just categorizes this applicable to all special districts, and it's required that each special district must establish goals and objectives for each program and activity undertaken by the district, as well as performance measures and standards to determine if the district's goals and objectives are being achieved. And so this is phase 1, establishing them. The ultimate phase 2 is starting on or before December 1st of 2025, and then each year thereafter, we, as a special district, are then required to publish, most likely on our website and/or as part of our annual report, whether we've achieved or failed to achieve each of the goals and objectives according to the performance measures we establish that you're going to be talking about today.
And just to clarify, only because this is a new piece of legislation, they basically are requiring us by October 1st of this fiscal year to establish how we'll be measured, and then in December of, say, 2025, would report back to the state on how we did relative to the outcomes.
There's no specifics on who you reported to, so there's nothing in there that says you have to report it to the state. It just talks about each special district must publish an annual report on the district's website describing that.
Okay,
So,
thank you. All right.
And if I may, Chair, thank you for that, Bill, Council. The guidance we receive, it says, look back at your enabling legislation and your budget. I summarize that to a few bullet points, and if you would indulge me, I would like to review
Please.
those with you. The authority's purpose, per the Enabling Act, is to operate and maintain the Naples Airport, leased from the city of Naples, and to contract, we have the authority to contract with any other airport in Collier County. We are a public instrumentality, that is a legal term of art, performing essential government functions. There's established a 5-member board of commissioners. We are empowered to adopt bylaws, regulations, enter into contracts, assess rates and charges, lease land, improve the airport, issue debt up to 15 million, and place liens on aircraft. There may be no levies or taxes assessed on the airport facilities or income. The Enabling Act was amended after its initial crafting and adoption to make it clear that the city and county retain zoning authority. And I believe that's it. So when you look at our programs and activities through the lens of our enabling legislation, we view that far more narrowly than all the various things that are included in the scorecard. And so that's why we've highlighted some, and as we review it further, there probably are some things we've highlighted that could be removed, and you may wish, happy to share those with you if you would like me to. There may be other things you think would be appropriate to be added, so I appreciate the indulgence on that.
Thanks for that clarification, as well as setting up the next part of our discussion then. Is there any outcomes here that we feel do not warrant a diamond where there's a diamond right now? Vice Chair Cudahy.
Can I suggest that we let Mr. Rosansky go through, he's actually done that, right? Is what I think I just heard him say. Can we let him go through the ones that he would take off?
Oh,
We have.
the fact that they put it on there was, I thought was an implied, that's what the staff would recommend.
It was, but I think what I just heard him say is after they did this, they got the direction about the Enabling Act. And he subsequently went back through and said, let me
Okay.
take, am I
Is that
Am I
accurate?
misunderstanding it?
I think that we had the guidance before that, but it's only been within the past 2 weeks. So
Yeah, I get
we're contemplating this, and I think our position is perhaps evolving a bit.
Yeah,
As we
that's better.
discuss it more internally.
All right.
So I think our opinions, our recommendations have changed a bit from what's included, highlighted by these diamonds.
Okay.
Well, in the interest of then not going through each commissioner's view on diamonds that might not be diamonds anymore, was there anything, to Vice Chair's comment, that you would not go forward with as of this meeting?
For the statutory purposes on Goal 1 specifically, which is on the screen, certainly the Part 139 inspection is a core safety issue that we believe warrants inclusion. The capital projects, that is part of our programs and activities, and they are budgeted. So we do believe that warrants inclusion. However, customer service rating is not mentioned. It's not something that's above and beyond what, that's not core to the enabling legislation. So we perhaps would remove that from consideration. And I'll just pause there, because we're at Goal 1.
I was actually, if you don't mind, because you're on a roll, could you go through the other goals before we
I
start?
think we should just go by goal and get them done that way, because
Easier.
it'll be
Okay,
more
all
efficient.
right. So on Goal 1, there's basically 2 diamond outcomes that you would go forward with in the statutory reporting, correct?
Yes, Chair.
All right. Anyone have objections to leaving them in as listed? Which were specifically the Part 139 inspection with 0 unmitigated discrepancies as an outcome, and the capital project phase and schedule executed as approved by the board, which we approved in the financial statements. Does anyone have any objections to leaving them in there?
Those two,
Yes, those 2 only.
I concur.
All right. All right. So,
Okay,
Concur.
thank you.
Before we leave one, can we agree to take off the one on the service rating?
oh, I already scratched it.
Okay.
And didn't bring it up verbally because I did that. But thank you for being specific. And we'll take the diamond away from overall excellent.
Thank you.
I agree.
Okay?
Goal 2, engaged community partner. And actually, none of these are mentioned or referenced in our enabling legislation, despite it being a significant focus of our time and energy. Arguably, you could remove all of these. However, if I were to include one, I would include, promoting voluntary curfew compliance, but I would remove the 100% qualifier because, that we cannot achieve, we cannot guarantee it's out of our control, and I don't recommend holding ourselves to a standard to meet a statutory requirement that arguably we cannot control achievement of.
I'll start off on this one. I agree with how you removed top participants in the Fly Safe, Fly Quiet as far as the state legislation, as well as the amount of presentations and tours. I do strongly believe we need to keep in an outcome of voluntary curfew compliance and our role in it. The 100% is, to me, aspirational. So as you just stated, I could be persuaded to take that out in my own thinking, but I do think the outcome has to be in here of voluntary curfew compliance to the best of our ability. Any other thoughts on this?
Yeah, I actually agreed with Chris. I would have removed all 3 diamonds. I'm okay with removing 100% and keeping that promote voluntary curfew without the 100%. But I actually thought that new flight procedures and the community sentiment survey deserve diamonds, because I think that those are really important to helping the community understand that we're really serious about what we're doing here and being part of the community and reducing the noise. And I think both of those things are part of that. I just think that given everything we're doing and what I believe is the outcome of the exploratory study, we need to be quite clear that it's not that we're not trying to reduce the noise.
Yeah.
We are.
Any other comments or thoughts on that, Commissioner Burns?
I like the idea of leaving voluntary curfew compliance in.
Microphone, please.
Leaving it
Oh,
in.
microphone.
I'm so good at keeping it off. And you guys leave it on all the time. I see you over there. Sorry about that. I do like the idea of leaving in the voluntary curfew in the item without the 100%. I'd be willing to take the 100% out. And, but I think leaving the voluntary curfew compliance in, I'd like to see it in there, but I could go either way.
Okay.
Either way.
Commissioner Kavanaugh?
On all of this, I'll follow management's lead.
Okay. Vice Chair Cuddy?
Thank you. If we go through with the definition that Mr. Rosansky laid out about the Enabling Act and those things are in the budget, I'm completely comfortable with taking out the Fly Safe, Fly Quiet leaderboard. I'm comfortable with taking out the presentations. I'm comfortable, but it also talks about practices and programs. So I think leaving in the curfew, but without the 100%, because I'd be concerned that people would want to start to, the government portion of it would want to come back and have you explain why you can't be at exactly 100%. You're very close, but you're not there, and I think there's good reason why you're not there, even though I love all the work we're doing, it's gotten it better. But this one about the flight procedures, I like this concept. So does that fit under the definition then of a program that you think, but it is budgeted, the money for it is budgeted? So I'm just trying to find a good rationale in my mind for why it would fit in there.
So it's budgeted, we're working on it, you have to measure the outcome. The completion and the implementation and publication of flight procedures is a bit beyond our control. Just as you've seen from the delays we've had over the summer months
Yes.
in meetings with RSW, that's extended the time needed to make progress on this. So I do have a bit of a hesitation with that one because
too.
so much of it's out of our control.
Okay.
I think I agree with that, that I would not put that one in because of that. And this is a one-year scorecard, and we don't know exactly how and when that's gonna come to fruition. The last one about conducting community sentiment, I do get concerned about another government agency then asking us to file compliance to all of that. We don't even know what it's gonna look like yet. We're still gonna do it, but I don't wanna get committed to something that it's then gonna be tracked forever, and we may probably, we'll change it 2 or 3 times as the time we go through, because it'll make good business sense to change it. So I would stick with just having the voluntary curfew on this one and removing the 100%.
Okay, I agree. So I'm going to ask for a consensus on this second goal, goal number 2, be an engaged community partner. The outcome would be to promote voluntary curfew compliance, all curfew violators contacted as being the outcome here that gets reported to the state. Do we have a consensus on this?
Yes.
All right,
You've convinced me, I concur.
okay, thank you. All
It's
right,
good thoughts.
goal 3,
Thank you. So, of course, our financial integrity and our audit are core to what we do and being accountable to you all in the public. And we would include the item recommend including the item on a clean audit. And I know, can you give you have any commentary on that for statutory compliance purposes, or?
As far as the clean audit, that's something we have had ever since the authority's been, in existence. That just means there's no, that you can rely on the financial statements, so, from a statute.
So you're comfortable? Thank you.
Absolutely, yep.
And then cybersecurity is an emerging issue, and we feel comfortable including the penetration testing as well, which you all are part of as we send sneaky emails trying to get you to click on things.
Yes, you do.
Again, do we have any objections to going forward with this goal, which is strengthen the airport's economic vitality, with the 2 diamonds that were already noted on the sheet, and as Mr. Rosansky explained them?
Concur.
I just want to say that I almost believe that we should have something about the
Commissioner, the
budget.
microphone.
Microphone.
Sorry.
Sorry, Mr. Burns, I had mine turned off. I believe that we should say something about budgeted operating margin, but I don't really like the detail of the 18.6, so.
As a public entity,
Yeah.
I struggle to
Yeah.
recommend that.
Yeah, and so I really just wanted to raise it because I do believe that we clearly need to maintain financial self-sustainability.
Can I comment on that one?
Please.
I wouldn't want to go with margin, but there is something in our enabling act about we have to make our budget or something to that effect. Is that in the enabling act or is that elsewhere? It's,
Yes.
What you might be referring to is the statutory requirement on the
Yes.
budget with maximum budgeted expenditures?
yes, that's what I'm talking about. I wouldn't have a problem putting that in for our financial
We
component.
could, let me scroll back to the budget real quick and look, I know that's in the budget presentation. Take me just a moment.
It's page 8 of the budget presentation.
Because I'm with you, there has to be some financial plan.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So on that slide of the budget presentation, it says Florida statute 189.016(3) requires the governing body of a special district to adopt a budget by resolution, total amount available from revenues, other sources, carried forward, prior fiscal years, must equal the total appropriations for expenditures and reserves. And then we have a breakdown there of what is budgeted for this year.
So maybe I suggest that you look at some wording that could just put some financial responsibility on here.
Yeah, I agree with the comment and the qualification. I'm struggling a little bit with specific numbers to go into an agency that has yet defined what they want and how they want it.
Yeah, I wouldn't give them numbers.
Yeah, I prefer, going back to the margin point as well, if we are basically stating, and I hate to paraphrase it, that we'll be in compliance with state statutes as far as reporting, as far as financial expenses and versus revenues or something like that?
Yes.
Yes. It's fiduciary and fiscal. I
Yes,
prefer it's that as opposed to
100%.
specific numbers.
100%.
Okay?
100% agree.
The goal could be to comply with Florida statute
Yes.
referenced here in this presentation.
Yes.
So so thank you. Any objections to accepting the two diamonds that have been identified and then giving management the prerogative to wordsmith the item that was suggestion about complying with the statute on expenses?
No objection.
Thank you.
I just have a little hesitation with all the skills of the hackers and everything else out there. I think we're taking a risk by sticking the IT penetration test stuff out there because everybody's getting hacked these days. And I know we're doing, and I don't think we should take the risk of violating the statute or putting us up for criticism by that, because we're doing our very best.
Would you be more comfortable saying IT penetration test completed?
I would. Yeah. Just say
Yeah,
completing it.
yeah,
Okay, because that's a measurable outcome.
yeah, that's a measurable outcome, I guess, okay?
All right. Do we have consensus then on the two that are listed here, plus the one that we just amended once or twice, as far as IT penetration test?
IT penetration
Yes.
test completed, period.
Yes.
Right.
So it'd be three. Compliance
Okay.
with the statute, IT penetration test, and an unqualified audit, basically.
Yep.
Understood.
But we're not
Yes.
changing the actual scorecard. This
No.
is
No.
the-
No, we're-
Okay,
we're-
got
the
it.
scorecard's done.
Perfect.
It's been
Okay,
accepted.
got it, thank you.
All right. And goal number 4, we have two diamonds on here.
Thank you, Chair. So obviously, we focus a lot on Goal 4 as well, equipping employees for success today and in the future. However, and some of these are budgeted activities. Employees aren't, other than the executive director and council, aren't much discussing the enabling legislation. We would recommend retaining the succession planning, but we don't necessarily need to include the other highlighted line on professional development.
Okay, any objections to the diamond that has just been outlined? For goal?
No.
I'm fine.
Okay, fine.
No.
All right, do I have a motion to pass, we passed the strategic scorecard through, I had a consensus on what we just discussed and leaving some of the final wording done to Mr. Rosansky and his staff to proceed so that we can comply with the October 1st deadline on statute 189.0694.
But,
So moved.
Yeah,
wait,
what?
we haven't talked about adding a diamond in.
Oh, you want to add something?
Well, okay, if you notice, some slipped in there while I was here, but let me open it back up, adding a diamond to
Well,
you.
you started doing that after goal 1. So
Okay.
that's why I didn't bring it up in
That's
goal 1.
fine, that's fine, please take the
But,
floor.
I thought, in my opinion, if there's ever one program that we should identify to the state that we're going to deal with is objective under goal 1, explore these alternatives. It's in our enabling legislation that the authority's purpose is to operate an airport on land leased from the city of Naples. It's in a memo that we received today from the Bill Owens. So I don't know why we wouldn't want to identify that to the state, that that's one of our purposes.
What would it say?
Well, right now, it's in there. But we just put a diamond on it. That's all I'm saying. Put a diamond on that item as reported to the state. And this year's activity will be the city and county feedback obtained on any airport exploratory study and next steps, if any, initiated.
Okay.
So just identify it as a diamond,
All right.
that's all.
I got it.
Okay.
So, in the interest, do we have agreement and consensus around Commissioner Burns' suggestion?
I agree.
I have no problem with that one.
Commissioner Kavanaugh? Oh, Commissioner Burns, you want to, oh, we got agreement. Yeah,
I would keep it as simple as possible, and I would not want to add it.
okay, that's fine. So, I'm fine with adding it as well. We have basically 4 in favor, 1 in not. Let's move on to,
Well,
ahead.
no, if I may, for clarity,
Yeah.
you're talking about adding an item to explore lease and alternatives.
No,
no,
No, it's already on there.
no.
No,
it's-
the
it's
outcome.
The outcome.
Okay,
the one that we
Yeah.
struggle with the
to
wording on.
obtain city and county feedback.
And there-
Yeah.
On the
and next-
exploratory
and
study?
next- And next steps, if any. Yeah.
The only change is that it will have a diamond on it, Chris, that's all I'm proposing. But the city and county feedback will have a diamond.
Yeah, so the goal, just so you're aware, the goal would be to explore lease end alternatives, and the measurement is to obtain city and
But you
county
both.
feedback.
You're putting
But
both.
the
goals-
objective
Yeah,
is-
well, yeah, because a goal isn't to obtain,
I don't agree anymore.
obtain city and county feedback.
Yeah.
So
Go ahead.
for clarity, Commissioner Burns,
No,
The
I'm just, all I'm saying, I want to make it clear what I just said. So I'm saying that what's written and what we have approved in the strategic plan scorecard, all we do is add a diamond to the measured outcome.
I understand what you're saying. So do you understand that when we're saying add a diamond, it doesn't mean that there's gonna be a diamond on here? What it means is that's what we're gonna report in this new statute.
Yes, I understand that.
So what you'd be reporting in the new statute is explore lease and alternatives, and then the outcome is, it would have both parts of it.
Yes.
I'm gonna change my vote, and not because of what you said, but because when you start putting this in, I think it's not that it's not important, it is the thing we're spending more time on than anything. But for reporting on a statute of what we're doing, I don't think that is, it's not really part of the enabling act, it's not part of the budget. It's something that we're doing because we think it makes sense because of the reasons that we're doing it. So,
All right, so let me amend it. The additional diamond would be on both the objective and the outcome here. Explore lease and alternatives, and city and county feedback obtained on airport exploratory study and next steps, if any, as initiated. Commissioner Dustin?
I think, I agree that should have a diamond on it.
you think it should be reported when you
Yeah,
say diamond?
I think it should be in the state report. I don't see a harm in it. And I think it is one of the most important things we're doing. I don't think the exploratory study per se, I think it's all part of the lease and alternatives.
Right.
But,
That's what I'm at, that's what I,
Commissioner Kavanaugh?
No, I'll follow management's lead, I don't want it in.
Okay, thanks. So my own view, for what it's worth, is the outcome I agree with. The reason I'm struggling with identifying the objective is the lease end alternatives, and not to take away from, the lease, but this is a 44-year lease that we will be able to do some things this fiscal year, and then there will be additional opportunities beyond this fiscal year. I'm struggling with being tied to an objective that goes beyond the year that we're reporting into right now. I am comfortable with leaving the feedback part, the outcome, because I believe that can and should be accomplished within this fiscal year. So I would be against adding a diamond to the objective and the outcome. And, you know, at this stage, what I'm hearing, just to summarize, we have 2 in favor of adding a diamond to both, 2 not in favor, and Commissioner Kavanaugh, I don't want to speak on your behalf, but you were deferring to management.
Well, yeah, and therefore they didn't put a diamond on it, so I'm voting against.
That's fine, okay, so I'm just, so 3-2, we do not put a diamond
Okay.
on this outcome, excuse me, on this outcome and objective. Okay?
That-
It's
The only,
just
I,
trying to be
I
democratic.
know you, I heard the vote. My request was only to add a diamond to the outcome.
And I was agreeing with that, so,
That's all I wanted.
okay.
But somehow in the discussion, it became both,
It's,
but I
it
don't.
did, it did, and frankly, it did creep out, creep meaning,
And I only raised the question because we looked narrowly at what was in the enabling legislation. And the only thing we see in the enabling legislation is to operate the Naples airport.
Right.
Nothing to do with the establishment of a new airport. And there has been discussion in various venues that if there were to be a new airport, it would have, that this enabling legislation would have to be amended, which we agree with. So I think in terms of statutory compliance, tying it back to what exists today, I urge caution in including anything about a new airport.
I actually understand what you're saying, and I think I'm willing to change my vote, because I can foresee that if somehow this got further along and it became a new county, it would be a new county airport, to be blunt. Because the city of Naples wouldn't have anything to do with it. They might have some role in it, depending on whether they contributed the cash that came from the airport resolution, but I doubt that it would have ownership of it.
Okay.
Because it's not normal for cities to own the airport in a county unless there's some ownership of that land in the first place, and it just seems to me it's unlikely that deal's gonna be struck.
all right, let me take the vote again then. Commissioner Dustin, do you want to add a diamond to this outcome?
The answer is no.
All right, Commissioner Cudahy?
No.
Commissioner Kavanaugh?
No.
Commissioner Burns?
Yes.
Okay, I'm going to, for the reasons Mr. Rosansky articulated, which were persuasive, I'm going to say no. All right, can we go on to the next, any other diamonds want to be added, either with goal number 2 or goal number 3, I should say, or goal number 4?
Not for me.
Okay. All right. Based upon the discussion of what we agreed to include and not include in the initial reporting to the state in compliance with the new statute 189.0694, do I have a motion to basically proceed based upon the discussion and the direction we have given to Mr. Rosansky?
I make that motion.
All right.
I'll second it.
All right, all in favor, aye?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you very much, Commissioners. Next, I want to go on to action item number 3, if I may, which is authorize amendment number 1 with EG Solutions for the North Quadrant Environmental Assessment. Mr. Carballo, will you introduce the topic, please?
Yep, Miguel Carballo, Director of Planning and Development. This item is to authorize the Executive Director to execute Amendment Number 1 to EG Solutions for the North Quad Environmental Assessment for the amount of not to exceed of $775,000, which includes a 10% contingency. We got Scott Brady with EG Solutions here. They'll give a brief presentation, answer any questions.
Good afternoon, Commissioners.
We got a minute.
Oh, do we? Oh, okay. Good morning, Commissioners, again. Okay. Let's see, is this on here? learned a new word, technophobe. Technology just overwhelms you.
Well, again, for somebody from Georgia Tech, I'm surprised you're saying that.
What can I say? I think I'm
I'll do it.
I'm a hell of a wreck from Georgia Tech,
Yeah, that's all
rambling engineer. I got a little confused there. Okay, very quickly. Up there in the North Quad, and going as far back as the current master drainage plan, there were plans to change out that ditch and make it a part of your water management system to increase your water quality, and also to relocate landfill materials that were right adjacent to it. And so that project, it was authorized for design a while back. And we proceeded with that design. We talked with the water management districts, which had already conceptually approved this, and with the Florida Department of Environmental Protection, who conceptually said they didn't have a problem with relocating the landfill that remained in that area because they'd already done some of it onto the city transfer station landfill site, which is also on the airport property, but further from your surface waters. And so we proceeded with this, and about the time we had some basic plans, the FAA, through their review, decided that, no, we think instead of allowing a categorical exclusion for this, we want to do an environmental assessment for us. So that's why we've come back to do an environmental assessment. The categorical exclusion, since that time, they've expanded even what could be categorically excluded, but this is under what was. So took quite a while to develop the scope and fee for this because you go back and forth with the FAA. Once you start one, they have a 12-month period, so they have a lot of upfront information they want before they start. This slide that you can see right now, that project site is the landfill area that's going to be relocated. The yellow one over there, that's the receiving area. And then earlier in our master drainage plan, you saw that same area being changed up.
Scott, if I may, you made reference to project we previously did. Could you highlight that area using your cursor?
Oh,
So the
boy.
board, because I don't believe any of this current board was around and I wasn't around.
I think it was right in here.
No, I mean, on the other side, you said further where the hangers, where those box hangers are today?
It's this area right here. Oh, okay, yeah. Yeah, okay, yeah, I got you, right there.
Yeah, that was a good
That
point that we didn't contemplate for including in this presentation, but this is very similar to what's been done in the past with relocating portion of the landfill. Those hangars essentially that exist over top of that word receiving landfill, the landfill existed there too, and we went through a similar process to reclaim the landfill to make it part of the airport, the airfield environment. So this isn't the first time we've been down this path before.
Very helpful.
Yeah, it was about 40 plus acres out there of total that were landfill on the airport. And that's not really uncommon with old military airfields, quite frankly. What we've done out there, we already have some information on it. And what you've got out there is mostly construction debris and household hazardous waste. It's anywhere from 2.5 to 12 feet beneath the ground surface in terms of how deep it extends. You've got some cover over it. And it's both above and below the groundwater table. And that piece below the groundwater table, FAA, basically that's where they dropped out and said, okay, you've got to do the full environmental assessment for us. And DEP approvals conceptually and swift mud approvals, soft mud approvals all aside, they've got the final word, so that's what it is. When it gets moved, when the waste gets moved, we'll recapture about 70% of that material and we'll reuse it to refill that area and clean that area up. And we've already got a lot of baseline data back before you even went went forward with the plan set. We took a lot of tests out there. This is over and above the testing that we did for your water management plan, which followed it. But the results are pretty much the same. We had one single constituent in there, one, that was above the residential but beneath the commercial target levels. And actually, it was that one constituent that set the FAA off in just one test. Just is what it is. That's what it looks like today. And as you can see, some of that area, you've got some debris that's on the ground surface too. There's some difficulties out there that obviously can be encountered in the maintenance program in that area. So that's what it looks like. Now, the environmental assessment itself, when I mentioned the FAA has this 12-month period, that's what they've got in their rules. They have to meet that in 12 months. It used to be they had no specific time limit. But once they got that 12-month time limit, they kind of created a new task called the pre-planning activities task. So the pre-planning just about does an environmental assessment. And then the FAA says, yep, we like your pre-planning, now do your environmental assessment. So it acts to actually extend their time, what it does. That's what happens. But you have to identify within their connected or similar activities, what are the alternatives to doing this, what are the significant issues and community concerns. All that is the pre-planning part of it. Then and any mitigation strategies. And I'll hit a couple of items in here that we know might be issues. Then you actually do the EA. You prepare it and you circulate it. And it gets regulatory reviews, and then you have a public workshop and or a public hearing, and you respond to the comments. At the end of all of that, you issue a final EA. You've got a 12-month clock after pre-planning concludes. And then the FAA has two actions. One's called a FONSI, a finding of no significant impact. The other one is they find it's a significant impact, and then they kick you over into the environmental impact statement to relocate the material. Okay, in the environmental assessment, here's some of the things that have to be looked at. You have to look at biological and coastal resources, hazardous materials, solid waste and pollution prevention, and again, that's one of the things because it is an old landfill, that's what kicked it into the EA process. Historical, archaeological, and cultural resources. We've already had some studies done out there for that kind of resource, and we have not found any on the airfield area up in that area, but we'll have to study it. You have the environmental justice and environmental health and safety risk that you have to look at, and a lot of these things are pretty evident, but you have to study it. The big one here are the water resources and the cumulative impacts. And I'm going to give you one of the examples right out of the FAA and what we'd already talked about on this before we came back with an approved document. They want to know if during construction, if the contractor has to dewater any of it, and the water quality tests exceed a regulatory permit limit, what's your mitigation strategy? And so we'd already said, hey guys, mitigation strategy depends on what they find, but either you continue the construction with extra monitoring, or you stop the construction activities that have water discharging, or you stop all the construction and prepare a remediation plan and clean the site. Those are kind of the mitigation alternatives. It gives you an idea of what we have to go through. And actually have some of that already written, just as we did the scope for this document. Okay, what do you get if this project happens? Well, way back when it was put in for water quality, you get improved water quality. You'll see one in here for the turf maintenance. Well, that's because you have all that debris. Some places it's pretty rough. You can't maintain that area and keep it all cleaned up. So you should have a reduced wildlife hazard up in that area where it's kind of, makes nice habitat. You get the municipal landfill debris consolidated. It's off of the airside areas. And the city gets a nice lay down and staging area up there. And basically, and now this picture you'll recognize is Pond 212. But what's going to happen up there, if you can see it, I don't know how clear it is, but you see the little fingers in there. Well, even that ditch is going to have those little Scott fingers in it to use it. So they'll be there. And ideally, moving this stuff away, it takes it much further away, so nothing's going to transport from groundwater in the future. Moves it off the site and gives you a nice level site. There's the project cost. That's to go through all those elements in the pre-planning activities. And that's ourselves and a specialty environmental consultant who you've also worked with, which is ESA. They have a big part of this, like some of those biological resources and cultural resources. And I think that should, yeah, that got it. That's the end of it. So that's the document, that's the scope the FAA approved.
Thank you very much, Scott, I appreciate it. Commissioner Capital?
Just a couple quick. So to move forward, can you give us a ballpark figure in terms of what the remediation would cost? Ballpark,
I think by the time you've dug all of the material out, built everything up there, does 4 million sound right?
I'm sorry, you said
I look back to Kerry here, yeah, because I was trying to remember where we were with those old estimates. 3 million, 4 million?
That's all right,
It might have been less.
All right, I'm just-
It may have been less, probably 3 million.
That's fine, I just want to get a sense
Yeah,
of what the
maybe
scope
less.
was. And none of this material was created by the airport authority, correct?
Correct. We inherited it when we
Right.
leased the airport.
So I guess I just like the public to be aware, again, this is a remediation that was, the landfill and the environmental impact was created by the city of Naples, you know, I guess utilizing the best of their efforts back when it happened 20, 30, 40 years ago. But we now have a landfill that needs to be remediated, that will be remediated by the authority through utilizing aviation resources, because again, that's how we create our revenue. So the aviation community will be paying for the remediation of this landfill that was created by the city of Naples and is saving the city of Naples taxpayers $4 million. Thank you.
Sums it up.
Any other comments or questions?
No? I just had
Yeah, please.
excuse me. Is the sole reason we're doing this is to improve water quality, or is there some other purpose?
That's the primary purpose. They're separately in the future, there could be hangar development on the site, but we have the immediate issue of our inability to maintain the site, the water quality concern. And, you know, we did go in and cut the trees down. It's a very difficult process, and you can't hardly tell it because everything's grown back simply because we cannot maintain the site.
And does that increase the waterfowl risk?
Yeah, so it's also a wildlife hazard in its current condition.
If there aren't any other questions or comments, do I have a motion to authorize the executive director to sign amendment number 1 with EGS?
So moved.
Second.
Vice Chair Cudahy made the motion. Commissioner Dustin seconded it. All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Action passes. Thank you, Scott.
Thank you.
So I'm going to make a decision here with the schedule. We have, in my opinion, somewhere between 30 minutes and 60 minutes left to finish this meeting. If there isn't a strong objection, I'd like to, A, take a break now for lunch, a 25-minute break. If there's if that's not preferred by the group, I at least want to recommend a 5-minute comfort break for those people that would need to take it. Is anyone opposed to having lunch right now and reconvening?
5-minute break could be better. Let's get it over.
I prefer a 5-minute break.
Okay, okay, so let's take a 5-minute break. It's 12:14-ish. Be back at 12:20, please, and we'll finish the meeting.
Robin King tells me I shouldn't do that. It's a local company.
Okay, I'd like to reconvene with the agenda. We're on, there isn't new business. I'd like to go to item number K, old business, governance. Mr. Rosansky, will you introduce the topic, please?
Yes, thank you, Chair. So we had a governance workshop back in May. There was a lot of good discussion, and there were some topics that were discussed for potential follow-up. And we have those here for your consideration today, give staff some direction. And you see those 4 items there. I will say, the bottom item, we are actually already working on, board packet, process improvement. You'll see a draft next month of a reformatted leadership team report that will also consolidate the financials and the noise report into one set of documents we'll refer to as board reports. So you'll see a draft version of that next month, and then that would, if adopted, would start to be used in the November meeting, beginning the first time we report on the new fiscal year. But those other 3 items, if there's any that you would like for us to pursue, particularly, I thought there might be an interest in a more robust commissioner onboarding process to include best practices that were discussed at that workshop, or any other topic you so desire. Happy to have that discussion and staff direction now.
All right, well, thank you very much, Mr. Rosansky. I'm going to be a little bit more explicit here and take each of the 3 items that you haven't addressed right now and just see, does anyone have any interest or suggestions in addressing them? I also have an interest in some of this too, so I'll go last. But first item is review and potentially amend the bylaws as it relates to the roles of the board, officers, and remote attendance. Does anybody have any comments or questions on this one or a point of view? Vice Chair?
I'm not sure that it needs an amendment to the bylaw, but I think we did a good, you led a very strong conversation about it a few meetings ago, and it seems to make some sense to me.
Thank you for that. Any other comments or questions? My own comment, just to pick up on what Vice Chair said, I don't necessarily feel we have to change the bylaws. I think remote attendance in particular is difficult at times, and I think Commissioner Burns pointed out, it's not necessarily you hearing us, it's us hearing you, whoever you are, not just you personally, but anybody in remote. I would like, if I could, to at least get kind of a hand-holding intellectually on how we handle remote attendance. Whether we agree on this or not, I'll leave it up to each of you. But to me, it's something that we should allow under certain circumstances. Those circumstances have to do with any medical or medical-related action that would require you not to be here, but you would like to be involved by remote video attendance. And for those people that travel in and out for some of the meetings, if there was a last-minute cancellations, which does happen on an aircraft flight, they would be the 2 primary reasons that I would at least ask you to entertain in whether you ask for remote attendance. Personal convenience, personal scheduling, vacations, etc. Again, I'm just opining on it, so I apologize if I sound like I'm being too directive here, but I'd ask you to do the best you could in not having that be a reason for remote attendance, because it really is a challenge in the chambers here to have the same level of discussion with somebody that's remote versus somebody that's present. And I would just ask for you to consider that in your remote attendance. And again, we don't have to get a consensus here, but in good faith, if you could just do your best, I would appreciate that. Next point had to do with enhancing the commissioner's onboarding process to include roles, professional development, and publication of best practices. Any comments or questions on this one?
Yeah, I think that we need to do a better job of that, and I've personally suggested to Mr. Rosansky that when this came up, when I had my call, as each of you do, with him over the agenda, that I think that's an area where they could develop an onboarding process that's a bit more robust than a tour of the facilities, et cetera, and that Mr. Owens needs to incorporate some of the governance stuff from the work that we did, et cetera, and really make sure that any prospective new commissioners really understand corporate governance or commissioner governance and how this commission works.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions?
Yeah, I think, again, it's a good idea from doing this. And it just occurred to me, I know we're not allowed to meet with the new commissioners because of the Sunshine Law. But is there any prohibition in terms of having former commissioners could be helpful to us in a pro bono basis where one or two of them could meet once or twice with the new commissioner just to sort of talk about how the process works, what their trials and tribulations were, et cetera, et cetera?
That's a
So,
Great, I was gonna say, good distinction from a legal standpoint, and Chris, please proceed, but yes, none of you acting commissioners can speak with a commissioner-elect or commissioner appointee. However, once a commissioner has completed his or her service, then there is no restrictions under the Sunshine Law for a former commissioner no longer serving to speak to any of you or a commissioner appointee.
So I would recommend maybe if you think about that being additive to the process, I think that would be very helpful.
Okay, thank you for your idea and comment. I actually had another sister to that idea. I had volunteered this year as a commissioner and as chair to meet with all prospective applicants to the role, to give them my perspective on what it's like based upon my experience on the board. I'm not necessarily trying to take it away from any of the four of you, nor am I saying it should be a formal role of the chairperson, but I would even go so far as make it known that I do think the onboarding process needs a lot of help. Your idea is a very good one with prior commissioners, but even applicants, as we've seen in the past, some of them really have no insight into what it's like. I would offer to do that if it's logistically possible. Could either be in person or on phone, either way as well. Commissioner?
Just a question of raw numbers. I thought there were like 20 or so candidates last time.
There were a lot.
That's a lot.
Yeah, I mean, again, as
Am I right,
possible.
Mr. Burns and Mr. Kavanaugh?
12.
Yeah,
Oh, is it 12?
You had the
But
most.
I think,
And then 9 interviewed.
9 were interviewed? Okay.
It was about the same.
But once they've
majority.
been interviewed by city council, it's too late.
Yeah, it would be
Once they're
before then.
appointed, yeah.
Yeah, and again, I'm not taking on more than I can handle. I was
Okay.
just offering this
Yeah.
year to meet with any prospective candidates that had an interest in meeting with me, not making it mandatory. But if I had that available to me when I was applying, I would have welcomed it, and in hindsight, I would have really welcomed it as far as understanding how things work.
Yeah,
around here.
and I know with due respect, because you asked to meet with me when
Yes.
you were a candidate.
Applying, yeah.
And I just felt it would be inappropriate because I wasn't going to meet with the other candidates, and as you know, I didn't.
No, I know. But-
And I hope you didn't feel bad about that, but I specifically didn't because I didn't feel it was fair to meet with you and maybe not any other candidates,
No,
because I didn't want to be unfair.
No harm taken or intended. But if you noticed, I was here one Thursday every month. So I was stalking you anyway.
I know.
And there were some personalities on the board
I
then
need
too,
to move
so
back.
appreciate it.
What's gonna happen?
So I like the ideas of either former commissioners meeting with new commissioners and/or my idea, if it's practical. I'm not suggesting it is. So can we leave it at there and I'll go on to the next governance point? Okay. Develop an annual performance review of, for, and by the board. Any comments or questions on this one?
Yeah, I do. Mr. Rosansky sent me a sample of a board evaluation, self-evaluation survey. I assume everybody got this.
No, you inquired
Okay,
about
so I
it, so I
just
did share it
inquired
with you.
And I actually read this, and I would encourage you to share this now with every commissioner, because it's actually quite good. I was a little hesitant, and I think I asked you not to, because my opinion on most of these things is that it's more fluff than substance, but I think this actually has some substance. I'm not quite sure how it would work, and so I think each of you should gain the benefit of reading it and make your own decision, and then we should address that question next meeting.
Sorry, is it a self-evaluation? or
It's
you're
a
evaluating-
self-evaluation, but then how the self-evaluation works, I haven't thought through that part of the process, nor is that my job. It's something they can probably do, or each of you will have an opinion of whether to do it or not, and so that's what we could discuss, because I haven't
Yeah.
thought it through.
Yeah, so I was interested in this, but I had a question mark in it, and so what I'd like to recommend, for the benefit of the other board members here, is that, Mr. Rosansky, that you circulate this and that we put it on as an agenda item. The good news is, this is an annual review. We just did the annual review for both the executive director as well as council, and I think we can discuss it at really any point in time, but I'd rather sooner than later, and then incorporate it into a practice that we do for next year.
And I'll share that. Self-review can be discussed again next month, and just for your edification, my understanding, of course, is that this would be facilitated by a third party, or you could choose to facilitate it yourselves. It's really your discretion.
Okay, and we could discuss what that next step would be beyond using it as well. And that's an interesting idea. I hadn't thought about that. I thought we would be able to work it out among the five of us, but your idea is good too.
Well, and it's not my idea. It was, I've had help from the facilitator of the May governance workshop, Mina Merkel, and, we'll, for this item, we'll bring it back to you next month so that you can consider it.
All right, thank you. Last item was, as you said, you've already started on this, and I would strongly encourage you to do it, which was recommendations for improvement in the board packet. I think at this point, if there are any additional comments or questions,
I just had one.
yes, please.
I'd just like to have the board figure out a process of where we could discuss more long-range planning issues. We're month to month, we're year to year. We are in some planning for some long-range ideas, and I realize the exploratory study is one of those. That being aside, I think we should have discussions about long-range planning.
So that's a good idea. I'm going to poll the rest of the board. I'm thinking, and here's where I guess the rub comes in with the wrinkle. It's just how many more meetings do we want to, because they have to be noticed, they have to be in public eye, and I don't want to tie it in to a monthly meeting. So I'm thinking this is something at the very least should be done annually or possibly semi-annually. I guess my personal opinion is, I don't think we should make it more frequent than twice a year, given the difficulty in noticing it, public, and getting schedules together, et cetera, et cetera. Any other viewpoints?
I concur that we should have discussion on long-range planning, but I think it should be part of a monthly meeting and noticed and everything else, but I don't know why we don't need a separate meeting.
Okay.
We need to shorten our meetings and move on with our business and allow 1 or 2 hours or whatever it takes for that during a monthly meeting.
Okay, Vice Chair?
I've heard Commissioner Burns bring this up continuously, so I know it's important. And I know it's very important to you. I would like, and I don't know if now's the right time, to understand a little bit more, like 2 or 3 topics that you have in mind that you think we're not talking about, just to be able to help myself understand your viewpoint.
Well, number one is, how did we get to where we are right now, and the way we operate the airport. And I have used a phrase, and you've seen it in my handwriting, status quo creep. I wanted to get into that a little more detail. But that sort of gets us where we are now. We know that the airport leases will expire in 2068. And some of the leases that we have now with tenants are crowding that 2068 date because they want long-term leases. They need to know for planning. And it's, keeping the airport where it is now is certainly one of the options, but there are other options as well. I'm not expecting that we have any decisions made, but I think we should discuss it, what is going to be our strategy long range. We do a one-year strategic plan, but nothing long-term.
Commissioner Kavanaugh?
Again, I think it's a good idea. I'm still struggling to see what it would look like. So I guess, I don't know whether it's appropriate in terms of the sunshine law or not, but with the passion you have for this subject, could we have Commissioner Burns work with a staff member to put together, I'll call it an agenda that we could look at next month or the month after to sort of then, once we understand the totality of what we're looking at, then we can decide in terms of what format and what process it looks like.
Well, let me answer that question. I had 5 items for long-range planning that I handed out at a meeting, and so I did that at a meeting.
I'm looking for a little bit more than just 5 bullet points in terms of, what does it look like in terms of 2 or 3 pages, so I can really digest it and understand it and provide a better opinion from where we move.
And to
Well,
answer,
I hesitate to do it on the sunshine law, but.
Why?
well, to answer your question, yes, Commissioner Burns can have a one-on-one conversation with Chris or any member of the staff. I also want to remind you of a procedural matter that, we're talking about right now where Commissioner Burns is bringing up an item he'd like to appear on a future agenda item. So if you remember, pretty recently, we amended the bylaws. So I think we're talking about 2 things.
Yes.
One requires affirmative vote, not just a polling of the board, at least three in favor in order for an item to be placed on the agenda at the request of any commissioner. But what I'm hearing is a suggestion that maybe to better refine what Commissioner Burns would like to be as part of that agenda item to have some preliminary discussions and bring it back to the board. So either way, I would say, it's going to be an agenda item, so it would require an approval, a formal vote and approval of the board. At least 3
Can I make
affirmative.
a motion that we create an agenda item in which we would review the work product of Commissioner Burns in terms of fully fleshing out the concepts around long-term planning along with a broader concept of where we need to go as a commission?
Okay, a motion was made. Do I have somebody to second it?
Yeah.
I'll second
Okay,
Okay.
Commissioner Kavanaugh made a motion. It was seconded by Commissioner Burns. All in favor of, I'm going to ask you to articulate it again so that we can
Well,
vote on it.
In order to move this topic forward, again, I guess I'm suggesting that we put under what would be under new business.
That's fine.
At a meeting to be determined, it doesn't have to be next month, an agenda item in which we would review the work product of Commissioner Burns as it relates to his concerns and his ideas around long-term planning, so that we would review that document to then further see if we want to move forward with long-term planning, and if so, in what process and what timing.
Okay, do you still second that?
I second that.
Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion passed. Thank you. Next,
I have one other just quick thing on this last thing, analyze board packet process. I know Chris and Justin, I would ask, I guess, and maybe, I don't know how other commissioners feel, I'd like to see more discipline around ideas or information that we can get and we can digest before the meeting, but that it doesn't have to be discussed at the meeting. It's just for informational purposes. You've given us great transparency and great information, and we absorb it, and we don't have to spend 5, 10, or 30 minutes on an item at a board meeting.
Yep, Commissioner, great point. I think that's one of the objectives that we're aiming to accomplish with some of these consolidated board reports that we're proposing to bring for the first time in November, so like the noise report, the financials, et cetera.
But then it requires us as commissioners to understand that it's informational,
Correct.
you know, and that if we have questions, we would get those questions answered in our pre-meeting with the executive director and general counsel.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay. Thanks for qualification and for your answer, Mr. Lobb. Now I'd like to go on to Section L, the leadership team report. Any comments or questions? Vice Chair Cudahy?
Thank you, Chair. I have a comment on page 4. I'm going to read from it just a little bit because it's so terrific and so lengthy, I might miss part of it. But it talks about the fact that at the Florida Airports Council Annual Conference that took place last month, that the NAA staff was there, and several members were appointed into leadership roles there. We heard last month about Mr. Rosansky becoming a member of the, let me get it right about what he became, but he became a member of the board, right? But we also saw Deputy Director Aviation Justin Loeb, who was elected Vice Chair of the General Aviation Committee. Congratulations, Justin. Our Director of Operations and Maintenance, Barry Brown, was elected Vice Chair of Facilities Committee. Are you out there, Barry? I can't see that far. Thank you. Congratulations. And our Communications Manager, Zach Birch, was elected Chair of the Noise Abatement and Community Affairs Committee. Are you there?
Yes.
Too? Congratulations. So congratulations, you, Chris, and your team. And we talk about development of the team and how we prepare them all for the future. It had to be something else to be at that meeting, and when they start bringing up who are all the chairs of all these different committees, and then you as being on the actual board, this is quite impressive, very impressive. Thank you all.
Thank you, yeah. I'll just add that in my first board meeting there at the Florida Airports Council, we started going through all these names, and not everybody's familiar with our team, and they said, okay, well, Barry, Brent, what, Naples? Okay, Justin, we know Naples, Zach, and they all turn and look at me. And say, you guys are trying to take over this organization.
That's
I said,
pretty
well,
impressive.
No, we're just very engaged.
In the words of a good gambler, there's nothing wrong with stacking the deck.
There you go. Congratulations to all of you.
Congratulations.
Yep.
Well, thank you for that.
Any
Well
other-
done.
Thank you.
Any other comments or questions on the leadership report?
Yeah, I did have something
I
here.
did.
Oh, yeah, I have one or two,
Quickly,
but
page 4, I noticed that the Director of Operations and Maintenance attended a conference where emerging aviation technologies was presented, and whether that person or someone else, that's a topic that I think we ought to put on a long-range plan.
I agree.
So, not that we make a decision today, but we need to talk about it. So, I'd just like to know, I'd like to get another update on that topic someday. Emerging technologies.
Okay, if that's something the board would like as a whole, we can do. We've given updates on those, and candidly, it hasn't evolved much from what was presented previously. Couple of the,
That's fine to hear that, I just had a question.
okay.
And not to, again, pick when and how, but Stephen Myers from Elite seemed to be very, not just interested, but closely involved with this as well. Whether we consult with him or invite him, I'll leave that up to you, how and when we put something together. Just only because I find the topic interesting. I think it's long range. At the same time, to your point, I think we've received good information. Barry updated this as well recently, but you know, I would like this not to be lengthy, but to be comprehensive.
Sure,
Okay.
makes sense.
All
Thank
right.
you.
Thank you.
Got one more.
Okay, I'm sorry. Vice Chair.
Okay, sorry, thank you. Oh, there we go. I see on page 5 that on August 22nd, Mr. Rosansky and also Mr. Warner met with the Collier County leadership about the ongoing airport exploration study and the enhanced partnership. Can you give us a quick update on that, please?
Sure, that was a staff level meeting, so we met with the county manager, the deputy county managers, and the county's airports manager, who serves on our noise committee as well
Right.
as their representative. And I think we all came to agreement that it's first best to address the exploratory study before having any subsequent conversations about what a greater collaboration between the NAA and the county's airports might look like, which we agree with.
That makes sense to me. Okay, thank you very much.
Okay. All right, if there aren't any other questions, I'd like to go on to the financial report. And under section M, Ken, would you mind introducing the
Sure.
topic?
Ken Warner, Senior Director of Finance and Administration. Just real briefly on the August financials, we were ahead of budget, favorable to budget by $32,000 income from operations. Would like to point out the change in net position for the month was almost $400,000. One of the big things that contributed to this is the change in our investments, the unrealized loss that we had. At the beginning of the year, we had $1.8 million unrealized loss. You know, as the anticipation of Fed interest rates coming down, which they did drop yesterday, 50 basis points, the 5-year Treasury came down as well, so it was pushing near 5% earlier this year. We had locked into a lot of our investments lower than that, so we had that unrealized loss. Now the Treasury 5-year, I think, is around 3.5%, so we're basically break even at this point. So just wanted to point that out, that is a big component to the bottom line for this year. And we are on target to meet the board-approved objective in our strategic plan of roughly $30 million of, not to exceed $30 million operating expenses. We should be around $28.5 million through this month.
Okay. All right, thank you. Any questions or comments? I did have one question, and something was revealed to me recently, and I thought it was important for the other board members to hear it as well. And this is primarily to Bill. Do we have to, as a board, approve the financials, or do we just have to accept them and
It's been a customary practice that this board has approved the financial report. However, I would say that there's nothing, to my knowledge, in the bylaws or enabling act that requires it to be approval versus receiving. Clearly, one of the primary duties of this board and each commissioner is to be prudent with the financial, activities of the authority. So I think it's important to either receive or approve, but it's up to you as to how you want to phrase that motion.
Okay, just as I found it interesting, because I've been on the board 4 years, and I've sat through many meetings before that, and it's always been the practice of reviewing them, accepting them, reviewing and approving. But from what Bill's saying, it's a practice, it's not a requirement. However, in the interest of nostalgia, I'm going to say, does anybody have a motion to accept and approve the financial report for the month of August?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All right, motion by Vice Chair Cudahy, second by Commissioner Dustin. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Counsel?
No need to accept my report. There is no pending litigation or other legal matters to discuss at this time.
All right, thank you. Ms. Menard, are there any public speakers?
There are none.
All right, thank you. And this is the comments and correspondence section. I do have an update with a meeting I've had, but I'm going to go last. So Commissioner Burns? Thanks.
So I'm, the topic of
Microphone, please.
He's on.
I have it on, I think.
You are.
Can you hear it, David?
I didn't say anything, he thought I was talking. I just wanted to bring up the JSX issue for discussion. And I know I was informed by the executive director that we could not keep them from flying in here. And that, I understand what he's saying there. I'm concerned about safety. I raised those questions during the original debate when they were introduced to us, and then we found out that the agreement was going to start immediately with them. I'd like to have an update on that, where they are on it, but I don't think it's necessary for us to bend over backwards to accommodate them. That's the part that bothers me the most, because I'd like to see what the FAA does in terms of regulating this type of an operation. And it's definitely perceived in the community as a commercial operation, which is a change in what we've been dealing with. Maybe not in terms of arrival times and departures. I'm sure they'll comply with the curfew, even they said they would. But I just wanted to express my opinion that I'm really concerned about that. And I thought we could at least table the idea of providing a terminal space for them until the FAA has come out with their new regulations on this type of a program. It's not enough of or this type of an operation of single-seat charter. It's not enough to me of what they've explained to us. I think their safety could be better. And I know there's an airport that's a general aviation airport like us that has restricted them from requiring them to use TSA standards, this type of an operation. Do you know that city, Chris?
The only scenario that I can think of is Westchester County. And to clarify, they're not using TSA screening, but they are using their main commercial airline terminal. There's a space, it's, to me, I don't have all the details. Quite frankly, it's a little confusing to me as well. Apparently, they do have a space there that an operator can use that doesn't require the TSA screening or for it to be sterile, as we call it, in industry, sterile from a security screening standpoint.
So I think I think this airport, and I'm sorry I can't give you the name of it, but I understand that this is an airport that has both commercial and then general aviation operations. And so the airport authority required that a JSX type operation to use the TSA security procedures.
Yeah, just only because I appreciate the question, because I did look into it myself. It was White Plains, it was HPN, there's a lawsuit, I've read the lawsuit. The issue wasn't TSA related, in all candidness. The issue was the city, which operates the airport, put their operation in their commercial terminal. They requested that it be removed because White Plains they do have a very vibrant general aviation activity as well as commercial activity. And the city said, we will give you space, but it's going to be here. And JSX said, we would like it over with the other charter operators. And the city said no. They had their reasons. And basically the dispute escalated. My understanding, and I'm not a lawyer, but my understanding was it was determined that the city had the right to give them space in the commercial terminal and did not have to put them in the general aviation terminal for the reasons that were stated. And that's being pursued right now by JSX, of course. but that was the initial ruling. It wasn't TSA related. TSA might be involved, I can't attest to that factually, but it was an issue as they wanted to be in this space, not that space, and they challenged the city on it.
That sounds like a very, if that's the city, that sounds like what I've understood. So,
And the city operates the airport.
so we don't have a commercial operation, so we don't have a TSA component at our airport, so that is different for us. So we'd be the flip of that. Can we require TSA security procedures for a single-seat charter airlines? And that's a question, so I don't know the answer. But if the FAA is looking at this type of operation, why can't we wait to find out what they'll do so that we can see how the safety of these type of operations go forward?
Chair, if I may.
Yes.
To the topic you've been discussing, we did ask Aviation Council, Peter Kirsch, about this, and recognizing that their situation is a little different at Westchester County. And, you know, if I remember correctly, his response back to us was, well, you do not have a choice in whether you accommodate them as an operator because they can operate within your airport's weight limit and it's a public airport. You do have discretion about where and how they operate. And that's what Westchester County did. Now, to your most recent question there, can we require TSA screening? I don't know the answer to that, but I am skeptical because TSA, I know, has staffing issues as well. And we could ask them. I have no problem asking them about TSA screening. My guess is they're going to tell us, well, why? It's not federally required, and JSX has an approved security program. And yes, we are aware of the issue, and there may be some change in regulation, but operator like JSX is following the regulation established for them as they are today.
Well, I guess the way that you could look at that is, if you ask the question, is the FAA requirements are the minimum requirements that are on the books now, and we're asking them to exceed that. That's the difference. And so there is a difference.
Oh,
It's-
okay.
They're more stringent, but why can't we require more stringent requirements? And then pushback would probably be, well, you're inhibiting them from providing this service and their economic
Not only-
activities, so,
It sounds like not only that, but it sounds highly discriminatory because then
We couldn't do
the issue is, what about all the other charters? I mean, and quite frankly, you might not use charters, but people that use charters enjoy not having to go through TSA. And you're talking about the vast number of people in this community and our customers.
In our airport,
Uh,
in our airport.
This is what the airport's here for.
And let me just take another tack at another point you made. If the laws change relative to there's two laws that are operating, that JSX is operating under. One's the Department of Revenue, the other one's under the FAA. If the laws change relative to their status to operate under the FAA rule, which allows them to basically be a charter operator, then they would lose, in all probability, their Department of Revenue exemption relative to how they operate. If I'm not mistaken, Executive Director Rosansky, but isn't our requirement on a month-to-month basis that subject to them following the rules and regulations, not just of the airport, but as far as the FAA?
Correct. We do have a draft of the agreement, and we included a provision in there that gives us some additional protection that maintains that should there be a change in federal regulations, we reserve the right to amend this
Yeah.
agreement at any time.
Yeah, and I haven't seen the draft yet, but I just know that in my discussions with Chris, that was an important fact that we do hold out there, that it's just current state changes. And to, I guess, the nuance of your point, which is fair, can we hold up versus not hold up? I don't think this thing's going to get resolved in the next month or two. In fact, most, because it's basically the FAA is pursuing it, and there's two lawsuits involved, one by the pilots union, the other by Southwest Airlines out of Dallas, because that's their main hub. You know, I don't know if, other than what Chris has already said as far as talking to TSA, I don't know if we can completely upend how we operate the airport, you know, for having TSA come in and screen all of our clients and all of our customers, because we really can't pick one out right now that has a possibility of having their status changed, their certificate changed. And it's not being changed for safety reasons, by the way. I just want to make that perfectly clear. It has to do with, again, the pilots union, as well as you know, various industry sources that are operating under a 121 certificate, challenging the use of the 135 luxury market because they feel that it interferes with their revenue base as well.
If I may just add to what you've said there, Chair. In fact, there's no clarity yet on what these changes might even be, but people with some knowledge of it have said that the change would be likely a multi-year process. The changes in TSA and/or FAA regulation. It's not going to happen overnight or in a short amount of time.
So to comment on Mr. Dustin's, and your expressions, Commissioner Cudahy, I realize who our customers are, but I always looked at a charter as someone who is a group of people who charter an airplane and go, whether it's one person, two people, they know each other, or they're in a common bond of some kind. Here we're talking about a potential of 30 individual seats, 30 individual passengers, thank you, on a plane. It's different. And that's what I think of it. We're all concerned about it. I'm sure you are too. So I just brought it up today so I could hear what your thinking is. This is helping me understand it. I don't think it's resolved it, but it's...
It's not resolved it, and frankly, it's not resolved in my mind yet either. But you know, I'm not saying, as you said earlier, which was a good status quo creep. I'm not trying to just have it creep up into it. I'm really trying to run this, my thinking, I should say, not this, my thinking along the lines of what people are allowed to do or not allowed to do. If there's something immediately pending, and it's going to be something that I saw in 30, 60, or 90 days, I might have a more of a leaning towards what you're talking about. I just candidly, and it's just one person's comments, because I've read into this, it's not something that's going to get resolved quickly, and I'll just say within a year or so. Okay.
So,
Yes, Vice Chair.
I know you think you're reading my expressions, but here's my question. My question is, what safety issue are you concerned with? I'm just trying to understand what safety issue you're concerned with, because the FAA is the arbiter of safety in this.
Well, there's examples on that where a passenger has claimed they were never screened. They just got to the airport, got on the plane.
So screening is your...
Screening is my...
Screening is your safety
Yes.
issue, not anything about the pilots or the operation
Right.
itself. It's 100% on the screen.
Well, I'm mostly concerned about the screening. I think the pilot, I asked, they came in and said their average pilot had 8,000 hours, but then I asked the question, well, what's the minimum? And they said 750 and 1,000.
Yeah, but that's typical for aviation. I mean, I worked in aviation at Teterboro, and we had a minimum of 1,500 hours for first pilot, first officer, 5,000 for pilot in command. Our averages exceeded that triple, quadruple, and so it's very, very common in aviation to have a minimum and have that minimum surpassed by a factor of 2, 3, or 4, based upon frankly, the quality of that operation and the appeal that they have to the better pilots. So it's actually a positive reflection on JSX that that's their average. Because people with that amount of time, right now, there is a pilot shortage. I know there's a lot of discussion about, people cutting back, but the activity level is so high right now. There is an extremely high demand, and standards have gotten cut, probably in commercial. I won't say they got cut, but they've been pared back to the minimum. But the fact that they have this in their current pilot base right now, to me, was a positive sign. Anyway, thank you.
I'd just like to add a little color, because I've studied this a fair amount, and first of all, in the future of aircraft, I recently, when I was in Aspen, I actually met the chairman of Joby, which is the leader, and we actually had dinner, and we were having dinner and got to know him, and I have a possibility that I'll be able to continue the relationship and maybe get to know him better, and who knows, maybe at some point he can come here and tell us a little bit about what he sees as the future of aviation, which might be helpful. But I see JSX as an interesting experiment, and I genuinely believe from my heart, deepest part of my heart, that it has a good possibility of reducing our charter error. People that have used it have told me that this is a really good service, and they are people that use charter aircraft, so instead of chartering a whole plane, they're going to be participating with other people that normally charter a whole plane, which would reduce the number of flights, which I believe that the information they gave us was accurate, that there was that 15, I remembered 18% reduction in, I think it was West Palm.
It was Miami, Opelika, they when they transitioned.
Oh, okay, Miami, Opelika. But at any rate, I'm looking forward to seeing how that develops, because I do believe that it's a better deal for people that like a lot of the parts of flying private, a big part of which is avoiding the hassle of TSA and the long waits and all that other stuff. But have the relative safety of private air and the convenience of private air, and most of the convenience of being in a smaller cabin with a fewer number of people. Now, 30 sounds like a lot, but it's better than 100 or 200 and all the hoopla that goes with that. And being able to fly with your pet on the plane with you and all the other stuff that goes with. So I'd say let's reserve judgment, and I think us trying to be the arbiter of safety is folly. I don't think any of us knows enough about safety to supersede.
Mr. Rosansky?
Thank you, Chair. Just for clarity, in case for anyone who might be watching, they do have a security program, a rather robust security program, which includes vetting it with the TSA no-fly watch lists. They do have their own security screening. Part of the space they need to utilize includes for their screening equipment to be stored when not in use. So that's one reason why the space over at the North Road Terminal makes sense. So they do have a very robust screening, but it not conducted by TSA, which of course, Commissioner Burns, is what you're referring to. We don't yet know what changes might be proposed. There's a lot of speculation. But we are watching it very, very closely because of this issue.
Thank you. Any other comments?
About that?
Pardon me?
About that or other?
Anything?
Oh, I've got some more.
No, I thank you for the discussion on it. I didn't have any more comments on it.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Kavanaugh?
I would like to take a few minutes to set the record straight on the exploratory study cost and process the NAA has conducted. Several county commissioners and the Naples City Council members have provided statements that contain inaccurate information, which I would like to correct, and opinions I would like to respond to. The first item is the cost of this study. This study did not use one dime of county or city taxpayer funds. The Naples Airport Authority is a non-taxing public body. All costs incurred by the authority are borne by the aviation community through services we provide or through Florida Department of Transportation or FAA grants. The funds for this study, if not allocated to this project, would have been used for other airport needs. In fact, the Airport Authority will pay the City of Naples over $1.5 million this year for fire and police protection. Second item, members of the county and city government have stated this study is financially wasteful and a waste of time. I disagree strongly. The idea and request for this study came from many constituents. In addition to public input, we as a commission felt that engaging an independent, competent organization to provide this information was needed and appropriate. I am very pleased with the product we have received and provides all substantial facts and background data. I believe these individuals and groups that advocate for airport relocation should be heard. These individuals and groups have always been respectful and utilized the tools and protocols that have been conducive to a good dialogue and learning for all. As an appointed official, I think it is important to listen to all voices and provide good, timely information so that all citizens can understand the facts and make informed decisions. This exploratory study does just that. For elected officials to dismiss the study as a waste of time is discouraging and wrong. I am disappointed the county commissioners have not accepted our offer to have a workshop where we could discuss the study in an open public setting. I thank the City of Naples for the upcoming joint session. I look forward to the workshop in November. The Naples Airport Authority is an operating authority with very little transportable assets. It has no taxing authority. It can only issue $15 million in debt. As outlined in the study, the cost of relocation is substantial. The locations outlined are all in the county. As such, the county will need to be the sponsoring entity and provide significant funding for any potential move they would support. The city should also realize that they will need to provide a financial incentive of substantial size to make this potential relocation happen. In my opinion, the airport real estate will need to be monetized for this to happen. The Naples Airport Authority is a responsible organization for managing the airport and this study, but the county and city will need to be the primary players from a planning, investment, and execution perspective. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Vice Chair?
Yeah, I'd like to bring up one other issue if I can for a moment, and that is the Picayune Strand. And the reason I bring it up is it continues to be brought up in the community. I read about it in the paper. I know that you did an interview with the paper, Commissioner Burns, or I assume you did an interview with them that had that in there. We had a meeting in May where we talked about potential sites and which potential sites we were going to include in the study. We took a vote on, you proposed that we should add Picayune Strand into that in that meeting. We went through a discussion about it. There was, I think you wanted to keep it in. Commissioner Kavanaugh wanted more information about why it would be an issue. And we took a vote as a board to say whether or not it should continue to be in the study. And we had a 3-2 vote that said we're not going to add that back into the study against the recommendation of the actual people who were doing the work for us. I'm concerned about the fact that it continues to be talked about and that you're continuing to promote it, because I think it's a reflection on the board when you do that. And the board decision, which everyone had a fair vote in, was to keep it out of the study. So I'm wondering why that continues to come up, and now we have people from the council at Marco Island who are taking time to respond to why that's a problem. The Conservancy's put in a tremendous amount of time on it. It's continuing to put angst out in the community. I'm getting a lot of questions about it, and I'd like us to find a way to say, as a board, in line with our governance conversation that we had a few months ago, as a board, once a decision is made, we need to support it as a board. You can have a dissenting opinion, but it should be spoken about that way, with the board saying, with the comment that the board has voted against this. So,
Thank you. I think, I'm
I'd
really
love-
glad, I'm really pleased that you brought that up,
this-
because
This is the place for it.
it is the time and place for it. So let me assure you that I am 100% behind the board's vote of 3-2 to take the Picayune Strand State Forest out of the picture for the exploratory study. I respect the board, I respected the vote, and the issue on the article in the newspaper, which, here's the timing on that. After the May meeting, when we took the, when we voted on that, 3-2, you said it was May, right?
It was May.
I think it was May.
It was May.
So, the reporter from the Naples Daily News asked me why I felt the way I did. Plus, she also must have watched the meeting, or at least read the minutes or something. No, she wouldn't have read the minutes at that point.
I think she was here
She was here.
for part of the meeting.
So
yeah.
she wanted to interview me, and I said, I'd appreciate it if you just ask me the questions in writing. Just send me an email and I'll respond. She did. At that, but look at that as a snapshot in time. In May, right after the meeting, I wrote her back. And the article didn't appear until she chose the timing of when she put the article in the paper.
Right after the August meeting.
Is that when it was?
Yeah.
Right
Oh, I
after-
saw it.
Right after
I
the
know
August
it. It was
meeting.
Yeah,
a
it was-
really good picture of me that was taken here in the interview.
It was
So-
a good picture of you.
No, seriously. I was as disappointed in that as you are, because it kept it, like I was trying to be advocating that we reconsider it. I wouldn't advocate for that unless the board decided they wanted to do that. And I'm not backing off what I said, but I don't want it to live on either. As I've said to you in the past, this idea came up from citizens of Naples who have actually experience in the wetlands that we're talking about, the environmental areas, and I don't want to be, I don't want anybody shooting the messenger anymore. I brought this to the board for consideration. I'm ready to go on with the 4 sites that we've looked at or that have been identified in the report. And so anybody that brings it up to you personally, tell them that, I'm not continuing to advocate for it unless somebody else, comes in here and talks about it and convinces you otherwise. I'm not advocating that happen, that I respect the vote. So,
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
I want to make it 100% clear that I respect the vote.
Thank you for both your comments and the context behind the story being
The
published.
newspaper.
The news, yes, exactly. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you,
Commissioner Dustin?
I don't have any comments.
Okay. I just want to report back on one thing. I had a meeting with the mayor and the city manager recently with Executive Director Rosansky. I'm just going to give you the highlights from that. The meeting was on September 5th. It was a good, healthy discussion. We had a 1-hour meeting scheduled. It lasted over 2 hours. What we talked about, and I just wanted to, in the interest of the Sunshine Law, as well as being a good teammate, tell you what I said as an individual commissioner. First thing we talked about was the joint workshop. We went through a lot of calendar management in that meeting, and we ended up with November 7th, based on numerous schedules and conflicts. The topics that we talked about in the meeting with the mayor and the city manager was the exploratory status, next steps for the council to vote. Picayune Strand is off the table as of the May board meeting. October 4th city council meeting, the Naples Airport Authority will present to the city council, which will include Mr. Rosansky, myself, and Doug DiCarlo, kind of a rebrief of the exploratory study to keep it fresh in their mind so that when we discuss it in November, it'll be more current and more factual based. The county's reaction to our request to meet with them for their comments, and that reaction was they weren't interested. That's probably the easiest way of saying it. Updates on flight procedures, which appear to be, and I don't want to steal Chris's thunder, it appears that there is some progress being made by use on airport arrivals. Departures is where we're getting pushback, any of the procedures that provide pushback, but we are getting some progress. We're getting some traction there, which is good. There will be an FAA reauthorization overview by Peter Kirsch at this joint workshop, which will be, I always welcome that. We discussed joint lobbying with our congressional leaders. The Fly Safe, Fly Quietly leaderboard, which, we want to bring them up to date on what we're doing. We wanted to talk about the airport utilization plan as it related to new development versus what was previously discussed, as we discussed at this meeting, and the expanded support that the Naples Police Department will be giving Naples Airport. We talked about the use of noise monitors for data capturing so that we can present it when the time's right to our congressional representatives about certain areas and certain parts of this city that have an inordinate amount of noise that they have to bear. The board's position on continuing to take and use FAA grants, and then my own position, not the board's, is that I'd be open to discussion, a suspension of taking those grants, but two criteria have to be met for me personally, or as a commissioner. There has to be a reasonably good chance that the suspension of taking grants would lead to a more local control. And the only example I have right now that's relevant, that's live, is East Hampton, and there hasn't been any movement after 20 years of taking no grants and 4 years of court fights that they're getting local control. So that, to me, is one of the two flags that are critical for me to reconsider. And the second thing had to do with financial underwriting of the cash deficit created by the lack of grants. So my position as a commissioner is that I would be open to discussion and suspension of taking grants if those two criteria were met. That's in essence, I wanted everybody to know what transpired in the meeting and what my own conversation was like so that you didn't hear it secondhand or not at all type of thing as well. I didn't bring it up to be a proponent or to argue it. I'm just letting you know what I said and how I said it. And that's my story, and I'm sticking to it. So anyway, yes, Commissioner Kavanaugh.
Just, I don't think I've been involved in these before, so we're gonna have this dialogue, and then we're gonna come out of this session with, so we've not asked them particularly any questions, I guess, I've not been asked to give them a question or a topic to discuss.
No,
So we're gonna.
We're
so-
going to
so it's-
represent
so-
October 4th on the exploratory study, and then we're going to put together, Chris is working with Jay Boudeschois on preparing an agenda. Go ahead.
October 14th.
14th.
Yep.
That's right, because I won't be here the 4th, but it's the 14th. It's Monday the 14th.
And my guess is because we have a board meeting on October 17th, that it would be a good time for the board to have any subsequent discussion.
So you'll come to the meeting on the 17th with, I'll call it, questions that the city wants to have discussed at the November session?
Hadn't gotten that far ahead yet. I don't know whether it's their intent to develop questions. I think, my understanding is it's their intent to develop a position on the study. We're going to present it, and then they're gonna discuss it and have a position on it.
So the workshop's only on the exploratory study?
No, it's part of their
So
workshop
I'm
agenda.
just trying to understand the scope of this thing and how I need to be prepared and how we as an organization need to be prepared so that we make best use of our time and their time and the citizens get a clear story and clear information in terms of what's going forward from that standpoint. So
Yeah.
that's all I'm trying to, so I don't know whether if we come out of the workshop with 14 questions from the city, that's fine, but then You know, we can have individual opinions, but then we have to have a position as a board on those 14 questions.
I can ask the city manager that if they have any questions, please share those at the 14th for us to discuss during our meeting.
I, for one, would find that helpful.
Absolutely.
And again, the meeting on the 14th was to basically bring them up to speed again, refresh it, so that they could have a point of view, there would be a discussion. I envision that we would get some questions out of that, to your point, but that would not be the only reason we had the workshop in November, because there could be and will be other topics.
I mean, just one that, I'd like to know what the cities, and whether, either individual council members or collectively, what their expectation is of the workshop, so I can make sure that I'm meeting their needs.
I think that's a very fair request, and that workshop is November 7th, is that right?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay.
All right. With all the comments made and all the help, I appreciate it. We're a little over an hour since our comfort break, and I'm adjourning the meeting. Thank you.
Thank you.